Alright everybody, a memorable weekend this was in the Premier League, with match day 23 of the Premier League now being done and four major wins coming off this weekend. That was capped off by Everton and Leeds 1-1 draw last night. The four major wins I'm talking about: two home wins and two away wins. Two home wins being West Ham's 3-1 win over Sunderland and AFC Bournemouth's 3-2 win over Liverpool. And the two away wins that perhaps have decided who the winner of the Premier League now would be: Aston Villa's 2-0 win over Newcastle, which has brought them to just 4 points behind Arsenal, and tied with Man City, who also conquered Wolves 2-0, as Arsenal lost to Man United 3-2 and lost the opportunity of going ahead by 7 points. And these games have given us an indication over who would win the Premier League and who would get into the top four. Chelsea also made a push for the top four with their 3-1 win over Crystal Palace in London. But Man United covered that ground by beating Arsenal with Matheuscunha's exceptional goal, brilliant goal, to win over Arsenal. So a lot to talk about, and let's just get into this video already. So I'm back with my notes, and the first game I want to talk about is West Ham Sunderland. This was a great game. Before the game, it didn't feel like West Ham would have any chance against Sunderland, because Sunderland have been so impressive in this season. At one point, I thought Sunderland might just qualify for the Champions League or at least one of the European spots. But that doesn't seem to be the case anymore, as Sunderland are now in the 11th position, tied with Brentford, Newcastle and Everton at 33 points. And the goal difference is more or less the same too. But Sunderland still stood a strong chance against West Ham, and West Ham just completely blew them away. If you saw the first half of the game, West Ham were totally dominant, and Sunderland had no idea how to even approach the game. This game revealed that Sunderland desperately need their captain Granit Xhaka. They need him in every single game. They need him to command the team. They need him to maintain the composure of the game. West Ham were excellent in this game from the start. West Ham were showing their intent. They were showing their brilliance from the very start only. Bowen was brilliant from the start, and Somerville then scored that terrific header. It felt like he was just flying over the defenders. I mean, if you saw the video, if you saw the slow-mo, you'd think he was just flying over those defenders when he scored that header. And that goal had been coming from the start. Sunderland just couldn't maintain control of the game. And it could have been 2-0 only a minute later, but at least they were aware of that one. And then that penalty that Jarrod Bowen took, that was a perfect penalty. He was so confident in that penalty. That just showed West Ham's poise in that game, West Ham's confidence in that game. And it felt like West Ham were just destined to win that game from the moment that first goal was scored. And then Sunderland just lost complete control of the game, at least until the second half, or at least until the latter stages of the second half. Because up until that point, West Ham were totally dominant in the game. And it was a very un-Sunderland-like performance, because you don't see in their games that they lose control of the game so easily, that they become such a reckless team all of a sudden. But that just goes to show how good West Ham were yesterday, how good Nuno had coached his team, how good Nuno's plan was for yesterday. And then there was that unbelievable goal from outside the box from Matheus Fernandes. And the commentators were saying that Matheus Fernandes needs to shoot more from outside the box. And they were absolutely right. Matheus Fernandes, what a player he is. He absolutely does need to shoot more from outside the box, because he's absolutely terrific at it. If you saw his shots, even if they weren't on target, they were so ruthless and they were so intentional. If he starts shooting more from outside the box, West Ham might just have a lot of problems solved, and he might just become one of the best at it in the league. And Sunderland did score one in the second half then, but it was too late, and they had already lost the game by then. It just felt like they just didn't have anything in the fight then. So a lot has happened in that game. I think Sunderland will still bounce back, and they might just finish in the top 10. But would that mean West Ham do keep alive? I don't think West Ham are staying alive that game. I think it was just a moment of brilliance. I think it was just an exceptional game for West Ham. And I still don't think West Ham are staying up. when it comes to the Chelsea Crystal Palace game 3-1. It was a terrific performance from Chelsea. It was we did great, and it was a very lively start to the game. And Crystal Palace still looked like somewhat of a threat, but I don't think there is much fight left in Crystal Palace, in the team, in the players, and Oliver Glasner either. Oliver Glasner has basically already given up on this team, and he's leaving Palace anyways, so there just isn't much to talk about with Crystal Palace. But Rosenior is off to a strong start, and I want to talk about Estevao, because Estevao, if no one believed it before, but now it is almost certain, it is sure, and there should not be any doubt in anyone's mind that Estevao is the truth. Estevao is the star. Estevao will be the star player of this Chelsea team in the coming years, and Estevao will be and not would be one of the best, if not the best player in the world in the next 5 or 6, 7 years. I mean, what a goal he scored this weekend. If you saw that goal, he's judged that ball so well, he judged that pass so well, and he just ran with the ball straight to the keeper, and then he shot it like there was nothing else he could see in the world except the goal net. This kid is special. Estevao is special, and I don't trust any person. I don't trust any person who doesn't believe in Estevao, because how could you not see the talent? How could you not see the truth that Estevao is? He has proven himself so many times since the season started, and his season was a little bit on the downhill in the past couple of weeks, in the past couple of months even. But that was just because Maresca was just choosing not to start him as often, and I mean, you can't argue much with that. But at least Rosenior is showing him the promise that he needs to be shown. And if you trust this kid, if you trust Estevao, he can go far, he can go miles ahead. Estevao needs to be nurtured, Estevao needs to be cherished, and it is time to give Estevao more time than other players, because he's the one proving himself the most out of any player, out of any attacker that we have. Pedro Neto didn't have the best of games, and he hasn't been having the best of games for some time now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea decide to sell him in the summer. Jamie Gittins and Alejandro Garnacho they've had a bittersweet season. They've had some great moments. They've had some really embarrassing games. Another huge game was the Arsenal-Man United one, and it was a game that everyone was looking forward to, and I don't think anyone would have expected Man United to give Arsenal such a fight that they did, actually, even when Michael Carrick was here. Now, personally, I'm a huge fan of Michael Carrick. I am a huge fan of the way he coaches his teams. I wanted him to be the manager of Man United 4 years ago. He would have made the league a little more exciting. But Man United still have the opportunity now, and he has proven himself. He has proven himself in every game he has managed for Man United. He can take this team forward, and I think if he gets the job, he will too. I think if they've shown this trust with Ten Hag and Amorim, they can show this. They can show the same trust with Michael Carrick too. And Michael Carrick is no less capable of a manager than anyone else. He's a great manager. He believes in his players. He gives them chances. His tactics are brilliant, and we saw in Sunday's game that Arsenal at points just didn't have the answers to Man United's attack. Man United were relentless at one point, and Arsenal just kept trying to attack, and they had some bright moments too, especially with Saka and all. But it wasn't enough. Arsenal just weren't precise enough. Arsenal just weren't on point. Even in the statistics that we saw after the game, Arsenal did have a much higher XG, but they didn't have much XG in open play circumstances. Arsenal in those open play areas are just not good enough, and I wonder how their season would have turned out if everyone else was consistent, or at least more consistent than they have been, and everyone else had been better. But Arsenal have been lucky, at least to some extent, that every other team in the Premier League is so inconsistent and so weak. But Arsenal do deserve their praise, and they've done a good job this season. They've done a great job this season, actually. I wouldn't be surprised if they win, but as the weekend's game showed, that Arsenal still have a lot of ground to cover. They are still inadequate in a lot of ways. The games against Chelsea and the game against Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup, the quarterfinal. Those two even showed that Arsenal are still lacking in some areas. And if Arsenal do slip for 1 or 2 games, I don't think Aston Villa and Man City are going to slip now. I think Arsenal might just be facing a real challenge for the title now at the fag end of the season, in the very latter stages of the season. And that is why Arsenal need to be so cautious. That is why Arsenal need to go back to the drawing board and come up with a strategy that they can use in these games where they can't find where they can't find much inspiration in open play attacks. I don't think they can rely on set pieces anymore. They need to just the only recourse they have from this is just to get better in open play. But that was what it was. Arsenal just needs to do better. In the other games, Man City have beaten Wolves 2-0. Burnley drew to Tottenham 2-2, and Fulham beat Brighton 2-1. Alongside, of course, Everton's 1-1 draw to Leeds. The case with Thomas Frank is so intriguing, because every time it feels like Thomas Frank is gonna get sacked, he comes up with a performance that says, maybe we shouldn't sack Thomas Frank so soon. But then you go to the next game and Tottenham play such a game that you just can't see him being there the next week. And it's a very curious case with Thomas Frank. And Aston Villa's 2-0 victory over Newcastle. Now, Aston Villa have had one of the best comebacks of the season. Could they challenge Arsenal for the title? Could they actually do it? Could they actually win the title? I think it's going to be really hard for Aston Villa, because whenever they're in the position to take over Arsenal, to take that position away from Arsenal, that number 1 position away, they lose all those games. And then Unai Emery gets frustrated, and you see every time how frustrated he is with his tactics, with his team's performance. He even said recently that Villa weren't even in the top 5. I do think Villa will end up in the top 4, but to actually challenge Arsenal for the title, they have to be really consistent, at least over the next 5 or 6 match days. And Arsenal have to slip up too, but I don't think Arsenal are going to slip up that easily now. What did you think of this weekend of match day 23 of the Premier League? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys soon. Subscribe to my newsletter if you like reading about sports and pop culture and all other things. And to my Substack if you like to talk about life or culture or anything in general. I'm writing about all those things, so let me know what you think about my articles too.